It is auto-magically, with those simple components, now adopted into my SD-WAN architecture, and I'm on the internet.
Are you saying auto-magically?
I'm saying auto-magically.
I love it. I love that term.
You're listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, the place to learn about new technology and technological advances before they become mainstream. This podcast is sponsored by D-Link Technology. Make your home smarter, safer, and truly seamless. Let's get into it.
Welcome to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro. I'm your host, Carrie Roberts, and our guest today is Brian Boche, the Sales Engineering Manager at Juniper Networks. Welcome, Brian. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
On this episode, we're chatting about AI enterprise. And Brian, most wireless networks were built before things like smartphones, cloud, and AI, which means it's important to update the network. Can you first explain or maybe demystify for us more about AI and why updating the network is important?
Sure, I'd love to. So the first point you make is very important. When you think about wireless as an architecture, as a technology, the point you made is very valid. The fact is, all these wireless companies that exist today in the competitive marketplace were built before the invention of the iPhone. Now think about that for a second. Think of how far we've come since 2007. Netflix, anything on demand, packages showing up at your door the same day. The world has changed and so has technology. But believe it or not, wireless as a technology hasn't. That's where it comes in with AI or artificial intelligence. And that's the reason Juniper purchased Mist Wireless back in April of this year, 2019. It's not because it was another wireless access point or another special radio that made things a little bit better. It's fundamentally changing how people are offering and subscribing to wireless services. So when it comes to AI, that has become another marketecture term, ambiguous, or like the word cloud, right? We hear that word all the time, and it can mean 9,472 things. Well, what AI means to Mist and to Juniper Networks is the ability to find out what's going on in your wireless network and making it easy to decipher where the problems are, who's having the problems, and exactly what that problem is. When you think about the user experience, that is now the main point that we're driving towards. Uptime is no longer a thing. It's expected. The network's up, the flashy lights are flashing. But when I say user experience, I mean when someone walks into that coffee shop or on that college campus, is their experience that the Wi-Fi sucks or I couldn't connect, thus I'm not going to have my son or daughter attend that college? That's not good. But what if when someone walks out and says, hey, I'm having a problem, or we can, more importantly, see that there is a problem and dynamically make a fix on the fly without any human intervention? And we're not talking about Terminator AI here, right? Where the machines are going to liven up and take over the world, which may happen regardless. But at the end of the day, what AI means to technology is the ability to adapt with what's happening in the network to create a fantastic user experience.
And as you said earlier, company Juniper recently purchased Mist, which was actually the first AI-driven wireless platform with the world's first virtual assistant. Can you tell us more about why Mist and why it's seen as the next generation of wireless?
Sure. And for those techie people on the phone, our virtual assistant is called Marvis. And if you think about that for a second, it is actually based upon Jarvis from the movie Iron Man, but they called it Marvis at the time because their company name was Mist. So a quick fun nugget for those listening real quick. But the reason that this is unique is that I can do a plain language lookup. And I think we've all done this before. How many people have been on a website, for example, Chevrolet.com, just to throw something out, and you search for steering wheel, and it says, nothing found. Well, you would think something would be found. It's a steering wheel. All cars have steering wheels, right? I'm poking fun at search engines, for an example, because what we've done at Mist is the ability to be able to search on common language. So what's wrong with Wi-Fi in Denver in the break room? And since it's an intelligent learning machine, right, it knows that the site's called Denver. It knows that the AP is called break room or lunch room. And it knows that there's 42 clients hanging off it today, and 3 Apple devices running iOS 9.9 are having issues. And in 2 clicks, I can figure out exactly the problem, whether it be DHCP, DNS, .1x, radius, whatever the case may be. It's that quick and easy to be able to figure out. But the most important point that we're making here is that I have a common language architecture with a virtual assistant that I can ask questions to, and it responds. I'll wrap with that thought is that it's continuously learning. Okay, so you hear about machine learning, which is differentiated from AI. That's a whole nother hour podcast, which we can do maybe next time. But the machine learning component of that is every time someone asks Marvis a question, it's learning. Maybe I don't have the answer, but there's computer data scientists behind the curtain that are reviewing that and making it better, right? Not only is the machine learning, but we are learning what people are asking that assistant, which makes it easier to manage, deploy, and use our wireless services.
No, that is extremely exciting. And another thing businesses should remember is that multi-cloud IT platforms anchor to the cloud and data center. But as you had said earlier, the various places people engage across their organization tend to have limited IT resources. Can you speak to that and how they can manage their network with the 5-step AI-driven enterprise migration framework?
Yeah, so that's, again, another long architecture term, so we'll break it down for people. At the end of the day, what we're talking about is how to get from your standard 3-tier architecture, core, aggregation, and access that we've used for eons, right? That's how we've built networks. Well, what type of intelligence do we have built into that? Really none, right? We had some SNMP polling. Maybe we did some SFlow or JFlow or NetFlow type monitoring to see what kind of applications we're passing across it. But it was all reactionary, right? Something bad's happening in my network. It may be or may not be telling me what's bad happening in my network. And then I have to go figure it out, right? I got to do packet captures. I got to look at configurations. I got to talk to this person. I got to talk to that person. It's a very manual process, right? Now that's current generation, if you will, right? Or the way we've always done it, step 1. All the way to step 5, right? If you think about the utopia, is where, look, the AI and machine learning components of these networks that Juniper is driving to with our AI enterprise architecture is the ability of some of the things that I've shared with you today, Marvis as the virtual assistant, AI being able to figure out what's wrong with my network in 2 clicks because I'm able to capture that data. It's in the cloud in a microservices architecture. We don't have any controllers in that network, not on-prem or in the cloud. This is a cloud-first architecture. What if we could take that, when we can take that architecture and deploy it to the campus and branch across routers, switches, firewalls? Once we have those components in the network, now we can actually bring that utopia to the entire campus and branch, and subsequently the LAN, the WAN, and the wireless architectures. Now I can tell you not only why Betty's having a bad day on the wireless, I can tell you why John's having a bad day on the wire side. I can tell you why my SD-WAN architecture isn't routing my applications properly, right? I'm pulling those metrics that I have to used to do manually, but I'm doing it automagically, putting that data in the cloud, munging it with an AI engine, and handing back verdicts and scores of the success of my network, success of connects, success of throughput, success of connectivity, success of how applications are responding. Think about the power and the user experience I can generate by having that data and taking action to remediate my network before anyone even opens a help desk ticket. That's what we're driving towards with a AI enterprise architecture at Juniper Networks.
Yeah, that is so exciting. So I want to also talk about SD-WAN. Can you tell us, for those that don't know, what it is and what it is not, and what are customers supposed to be doing with it?
You bet. So today, SD-WAN is another, right? We keep talking about these technologies that are ambiguous, right? Everyone seems to have a different take on what SD-WAN is. In fact, there's probably 50 vendors out there today that would love to sell you some SD-WAN. Well, if we look at that from Gartner's perspective, these are the 4 principles that Gartner calls out as their scoring in the Gartner reports. Number 1, I have to support 2 connection types, right? MPLS, LTE, cable modem, for example, right? Number 2, dynamic path selection. I should be able to say, This traffic goes this way, this traffic goes that way. More importantly is application-based routing, right? Facebook goes this way, Farmville goes that way, and my VoIP traffic goes this way. I should be able to delineate, just like a next generation firewall, on an application signature, not on a port signature. Number 3, a simple management interface. The joke I like to tell is that SD-WAN isn't something new. We've been doing this for a long time. Anybody that's been in the networking world knows about policy-based routes, for example, right? We're doing similar type technologies, but we're putting an overlay of software, right, with simple provisioning, simple setups, and simple management from a GUI, instead of nerding down to the CLI and telling a router or a switch what to do with this traffic when it sees an issue, or for example, when a ping fails across the network, okay? Number 4 and last is securing that architecture, right? I can't just set up multiple connections across the globe and have a full mesh topology and not secure that traffic, right? Especially since one of those redundant links is likely an internet or a broadband connection. I need to be able to encapsulate that in a VPN packet, right? I need to be able to secure that traffic as it crosses the globe. Those are the 4 SD-WAN principles from Gartner. So when you start looking at these SD-WAN companies and solutions, that's really what it is in a nutshell. Sexy policy-based routing we've been doing for a long time, but making it easy to use, easy to deploy, and easy to manage. You get the visibility into what's happening and the success I'm driving with that architecture. At Juniper, we have a cloud-based offering called CSO, Control Services Orchestration, not to be confused with Control, which is our SDN controller. At the end of the day, the technology is cloud-based. I leverage the same CPE devices that everyone's come to know and love us for, our SRX platform, which is a router, a switch, and a firewall all in one. So if customers are already running that platform, it's simply some licensing, and away I go. I'm now running some SD-WAN in my architecture, or my WAN. And if it's not, it's a greenfield deployment. Plug the blue cable into port 1, plug the red cable into port 2. I don't even have to roll a smart truck to make that happen. The branch manager, for example, at the bank can just plug it in for me. It auto-provisions, it auto-adopts into the management console, and auto-downloads the configuration. It is auto-magically, with those simple components, now adopted into my SD-WAN architecture, and I'm on the internet. So today, when you think about SD-WAN, don't think about the way that we've done it forever, where it was hard, it was manual, and I had no visibility of what was going on. Today, the utopia is that I can manage it from a central console. Today at Juniper, that's cloud-based, and it's simply a subscription. 1 year, 3 year, 5 year on the CPE devices that we already have on our truck. Not another box with another maintenance agreement, with another power cord, and another different management console. I can start lessening my footprint at the branch and make it easier to support my routing, switching, security, and wireless needs with Juniper's SD-WAN architecture.
Are you saying auto magically?
I'm saying auto magically.
I love it. I love that term. Can you share with us some customer stories or wins you have where organizations have implemented any of the things that we've talked about today?
Yeah, so twofold. Number 1, we'll start with Mist, which is where we started. Super exciting technology we have in the truck. Getting a lot of traction on this today. Take a look if you haven't. We have Wireless Wednesdays, and you can simply log on and view a webinar, or they're recorded. But when it comes to Mist, one of the big wins we like to share is a large retailer, right, with hundreds of thousands of APs across the globe. Now think about that for a second. Think of the management and the architecture that needs to be there to support that type of wireless connectivity. What Mist brought to the table was exactly what we've talked about. The virtual assistant to be able to find out what's going on with a common language search engine. And number 2, the AI and the intelligence to find out what's going on at those sites when and if there is a problem. And to your point, auto-magically fix those problems as they arise. One thing I haven't talked about here where we're having such success in that retail vertical space is BLE. And for those that don't know, that acronym is Bluetooth Low Energy. It's been around for a while now, maybe the last 5 to 7 years, but typically as an overlay network, right? And when I say that, I mean an additional piece of hardware, typically battery powered, that is rolled out in addition to access points for service. So if I'm trying to figure out where I'm going, right, in a building by waypoints, right, and trying to help somebody through a giant casino in Vegas, for example, it's hard to find your way around. But what if I had an app that gave me a visual representation as I walked through the corridors? It gave me turn-by-turn directions. That's one of the examples that our BLE technology can bring to customers. The reason we can do that is we have an integrated BLE antenna array built into our AP. So no longer do you have to deploy two separate architectures to support Wi-Fi connectivity and Bluetooth low energy location services. So that's number one. Being able to do those two things for large retail deployments is some of the reasons we won large retail opportunities. Please reach out to anybody at Juniper to learn more about that. Number two, when it comes to SD-WAN, similarly, customers are tired of putting more boxes in the branch. Routers, switches, firewalls, load balancers, SD-WAN appliances, servers, point of sale. You can imagine how big that data rack now is getting in the back of the 7-Eleven, right? Now I can simply shrink that footprint, support them virtually, right? We call those VNFs, or virtual network functions. Instead of having physical boxes that do everything like we used to do with servers, where we hugged our Exchange server and our file and print server and our VPN server, I'm virtualizing it just like I did with VMware with my applications, but I'm doing the same thing with my network functions, my router, my switch, my firewall, my load balancer. I virtualize them in Juniper's platforms, shrink the footprint, and bring those services, including SD-WAN, as I mentioned, as it's supported on that common CPE platform of the SRX or our industry-leading full feature parity virtual SRX, okay? So the ability to win there is being able to shrink that footprint, make it easy to deploy, easy to consume, and easy to manage. That's the reason Juniper is winning in the marketplace today.
And for those that don't know a lot about your company, Juniper, can you talk more about what it offers and also where people can learn more about what we discussed today or connect with yourself?
Absolutely. So they can learn more what Juniper does at simply www.juniper.net. Okay, that's our public-facing website. You can find a lot of this information I've talked about today. In fact, we've recently refreshed our page to have YouTube videos and links to other videos and web pages and content and white papers. So please feel free to take a look. Number two, you can reach me, Brian Boche, B-O-C-H-E, on LinkedIn. I do most of my interaction socially on LinkedIn, so please look me up. Reach out if you have any questions or comments. We'd like to wrap more about this. And finally, at Juniper, real quick in a nutshell, 30 seconds, Juniper was founded in 96, shipped our first router in 98, which really revolutionized the internet, being able to pull full tables and move packets across the globe. Since then, we've become an industry leader in the enterprise space with switching, security, and wireless solutions, not to mention network monitoring capabilities, network management capabilities. All of that exists on the truck today. Juniper's tagline would be connect everything, empower everyone. And it's really what we're doing. If you think about it, flashy lights and power cords and packets swinging around the globe, it's only so sexy. But if you think about what's happening on top of that architecture of moving those applications and people and information across the globe, it becomes immensely powerful and immensely empowering to think that we're supporting healthcare, retail, social media companies, trading floors, finance, being able to connect people across the globe to see their families. That's all being powered by Juniper. So when you think Juniper, think that we have the ability to support you in your WAN, LAN, your Wi-Fi networks, and not to mention securing it across all of that with our SRX and our security portfolio. That's what we're doing today at Juniper. And we're super excited to be on this podcast today, and we look forward to interacting with you more.
Wonderful. And the last question we like to ask our guests on this show is, where do you personally see technology going within the next year?
Well, personally, I see my kids running around the house with their iPhones and hiding from me when it's time to do dishes. However, what I see that's happening in technology today is that it's going to become more and more ingrained in our daily lives. Now, that's really a Captain Obvious answer. Everyone kind of gets that to that point. But if you think of how rapidly this technology is integrating into what we do every day, the fact that we can be flying down the highway, ask Google if there's a Starbucks near us, place our order, drive into the parking lot, and it's sitting at the end of the counter when we arrive, we couldn't even do that a year ago. So if you think about how fast the acceleration of those types of user experiences are happening, the networks that people leverage to offer that customer experience have to adapt. So, case in point, I believe strongly, and not just because I work here at Juniper, that we are well positioned to be able to support businesses that are transitioning into this, I hope my application's up, to my customers better be getting the best user experience to continue to grow my business and my market share. That's where I really see things going. These networks have to adapt. They have to move beyond the typical architectures that we've used for eons and be able to leverage AI and ML as we are here at Juniper in our current wireless solution and shortly across our campus and branch portfolio to support that user experience, to keep customers happy and to keep our businesses moving forward.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been a tremendous amount of insight and just some exciting information on a lot of the AI things that are here and that are coming. So thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on today. And I look forward to interacting with you and your partners and your customers in the future.
If you like this episode or have a question, join the discussion on Twitter at Ingram Tech Soul with the hashtag B2B Tech Talk. Thank you for tuning in and subscribing to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro.
You've been listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, hosted by Carrie Roberts and sponsored by D-Link Technology. B2B Tech Talk is a joint production by Sweetfish Media and Ingram Micro. Ingram Micro production handled by Laura Burton and Christine Fan. To not miss an episode, subscribe today in your favorite podcast platform.